That ambulance has been empty for 6 years. Staff Sergeant Travis Walker said it, as if the fact should have been enough to call the dog away. It was not. Rain moved across the abandoned clinic yard in silver sheets, filling tire tracks and turning the West Virginia soil into black mud. Behind a leaning chain-link fence, the old ambulance sat beneath a dead security light, its white paint dulled by rust and weather, its emergency markings almost erased. Rook stood at the rear doors with both front paws pressed against the metal. The 6-year-old German Shepherd was soaked from ears to tail, his sable coat dark beneath the rain, and his faded red rescue collar shining whenever Travis's flashlight passed over it. Rook, search complete. Come. The dog turned his head, met Travis's eyes, and remained exactly where he was. Then he scratched the door twice. Slow, controlled, deliberate. He lowered himself into the mud and stared at the narrow seam between the doors. Travis felt the first warning move through him. Rook did not lie down during an active search unless he had found human scent in a place he could not enter. The signal had been practiced dozens of times around collapsed structures, locked vehicles, and flooded homes. Find. Hold. Wait for the handler. Travis crossed the yard and crouched beside him. The ambulance smelled of wet leaves, old rubber, and rust. One rear tire had sunk several inches into the soft ground. Moss covered the bumper. Nothing about the vehicle suggested recent use. There is nobody in there, Travis said quietly. Rook's ears shifted toward the door. A faint sound came from inside. Not a voice. Not yet. Something small touched metal, then stopped. Travis raised one hand toward the rescue volunteers waiting near the fence. Kill the radio traffic. The voices behind him fell silent. Rain tapped across the ambulance roof. Water ran through the weeds beneath the chassis. Travis leaned closer to the door and listened. Rook did not move. Another sound came from the dark interior. A soft knock. A pause. Then 2 more. Travis aimed his flashlight through the clouded rear window, but the glass had been painted from the inside when the ambulance was taken out of service. Only a thin corner remained clear. He wiped away rain and saw darkness, torn insulation, and the pale edge of an old privacy curtain. Then a circle of mist appeared against the inside of the glass. It faded almost immediately. Breath. Travis looked down at the step beneath the doors. A small shoe print marked the mud near the bumper, fresh enough that rain had not erased its edges. A thread of pink fabric clung to the lower hinge. Rook lifted one paw and scratched twice again. Travis keyed his radio. Chief Grant, this is Walker at the abandoned Millstone Clinic. Rook has a confirmed live scent alert on an out-of-service ambulance. I have possible child-sized tracks and condensation inside the rear glass. Static answered first. Then Chief Marissa Grant's voice arrived. The evacuation roster shows every child accounted for. Travis kept his eyes on the door. Somewhere behind it, something shifted weakly across the metal floor. Then the roster may be wrong. He reached for the manual entry tools secured to his belt. Rook rose but stayed beside him, nose fixed on the seam. Travis placed one gloved hand against the cold rear door. From inside the ambulance, a child whispered so softly he almost mistook it for rain. Please do not leave. 3 hours earlier, Travis Walker stood beneath the fluorescent lights of the Millstone Emergency Operations Garage, checking the evacuation roster while rain hammered the metal roof above him. Riverside Park had been ordered to clear before the creek crossed its banks, and buses moved families toward the county shelter in slow, crowded lines. Travis was a Marine reservist and a certified technical rescue specialist, but tonight he had been assigned a simpler task: count every child, confirm every wristband, and search any structure left behind. He trusted procedures. He just never trusted a count the first time. Near the loading area, volunteers called names while parents carried blankets, medication bags, and sleeping children through the rain. Travis moved from one bus to the next, matching faces to the electronic list. A small plastic evacuation band sat in the pocket of his yellow rescue jacket, faded from age and bent along one edge. He had worn it when he was 10 years old, during another West Virginia flood. In the confusion, he and his 6-year-old sister had been placed on different buses. He still remembered her fingers slipping from his hand as adults pushed them towards separate doors. They had been reunited 2 days later, safe but frightened. The memory never left. You counted this bus already, Chief Marissa Grant said as Travis checked the final row again. I know. And one empty seat does not mean one missing child. But I want the names confirmed. Marissa handed him a tablet. The roster showed Ben Carter, age 11, and Lily Carter, age 5, scanned onto bus 4 at 6:12 in the evening. Their aunt, Jenna Carter, had already arrived at the county shelter and believed the children were traveling with another group. The system says they boarded, Marissa said. Travis looked toward bus 4. Did the driver see them? A volunteer called the driver by radio. Static answered first. Then a tired voice said he remembered the Carter family's luggage but could not remember the children themselves. The rain seemed louder for a moment. Jenna was contacted at the shelter. Her voice shook when she explained that Ben had taken Lily back toward their trailer to retrieve her allergy medication while Jenna loaded bags onto the bus. She had assumed they returned with a teacher. The teacher assumed they boarded with Jenna. Someone had scanned the family group before all three were physically present. They are not here, the shelter coordinator said. Travis stared at the green check marks beside the children's names. 2 digital confirmations. No children. Marissa immediately ordered a second search of Riverside Park and every structure along the uphill evacuation route. Walker, take Rook and cover the old clinic property, the storage lots, and the access road behind the mobile home park. Travis clipped the tracking line to the reinforced ring on Rook's harness. The German shepherd stood ready, sable coat already damp from the rain, amber eyes fixed on him. Travis let the dog smell Lily's medication pouch, which Jenna had carried by mistake with the family luggage. Rook inhaled once, then turned toward the open garage door. Find, Travis said. They moved through flooded streets beneath rotating emergency lights. At Riverside Park, the trailers were empty, doors left open and curtains moving in the wind. Rook followed the scent past a drainage ditch, across a muddy service path, and toward higher ground. A small shoe print appeared beside an old fence. Then another. The trail led away from the buses and toward the abandoned Millstone Clinic. Travis touched the evacuation band in his pocket and remembered the weight of his sister's hand disappearing from his own. Not twice, he whispered. Not on my watch. Rook pulled toward the dark yard behind the clinic, where an old ambulance waited beneath the rain. Rook entered the clinic yard with his nose low, following the scent through wet weeds and around the remains of a wooden fence. Travis kept the tracking line loose enough for the German shepherd to work, but short enough to keep him away from broken glass and standing water. The abandoned clinic rose beside them, dark and silent, its windows boarded and its sign hanging crooked beneath the rain. The trail did not lead to the building. It curved behind it, toward the old ambulance resting near a row of rusted storage sheds. Rook circled the vehicle once. He checked the front wheel, the side door, and the muddy ground beneath the chassis. Then he stopped at the rear doors. His body became still. His ears lifted. He placed both front paws against the metal and scratched twice. Travis watched the signal carefully. Rook had been trained to lie down and hold his gaze when he detected living human scent inside a place he could not enter. The German shepherd lowered himself into the mud without taking his eyes from the door seam. Good alert, Travis said quietly. He reported the location to Chief Marissa Grant, then moved closer to inspect the vehicle. Rain had softened the ground around the tires, but one small shoe print remained visible on the rear step. It matched the tracks near the fence. A thin piece of pink fabric clung to the lower hinge, wet but recently torn. Travis remembered the photograph Jenna had shown him at the shelter. Lily had been wearing a pink hooded jacket when the evacuation began. He lifted his flashlight toward the painted rear window. At first, he saw only black glass and his own reflection. Then a small patch near the corner clouded from the inside. The mist faded. Several seconds later, it returned. Breath. Travis removed one glove and placed his fingers near the rubber door seal. A faint current of warmer air touched his skin. Chief, I have child-sized tracks, fabric consistent with Lily's jacket, and possible condensation from inside the vehicle. Marissa answered through the radio. The roster still shows both children on bus 4, but the shelter has confirmed they never arrived. Rescue team is 4 minutes out. Rook tilted his head. Something moved behind the doors. A soft scrape crossed the metal floor. Travis silenced his radio and leaned close. Ben? Lily? My name is Staff Sergeant Travis Walker. I am with Millstone Rescue. Can you hear me? Nothing answered. Rain drummed across the roof. Rook scratched twice more, then pressed his nose against the seam. Travis listened again. 3 weak knocks came from inside. He answered by tapping the door 3 times with his knuckles. A child tapped back once. "We hear you," Travis said. "Do not push against the doors. We are opening them from outside." A voice came through the metal, faint and careful. "My sister is cold." Travis felt the old evacuation band in his jacket pocket. For 1 second, he was 10 years old again, watching his sister disappear through another bus door. Then training replaced memory. "What is your name?" "Ben." "Ben, stay with Lily. Keep her wrapped up. Help is here." Travis examined the hinges and locking mechanism. The external handle had rusted nearly solid, and the frame had shifted as the rear tires sank into the mud. Pulling the door by force could make it swing inward or disturb whatever the children had placed against it. He attached a stabilizing strap from the ambulance frame to the rescue vehicle parked on higher ground, then checked the wheel position. Rook remained beside him, alert but calm. Headlights appeared through the rain as Marissa and the technical rescue team entered the yard carrying manual spreaders, blankets, and pediatric medical supplies. Travis pointed to the narrow door seam. 2 children confirmed inside. "We open it slowly." From beyond the metal came Ben's voice again, smaller this time. "Please do not close it again." Marissa positioned the technical rescue team around the rear of the ambulance while Travis kept his voice steady through the narrow seam. "Ben, move as far from the doors as you can without leaving your sister." A pause followed, then the boy answered, "We are against the side wall." Travis checked the stabilizing strap again. The old ambulance leaned slightly toward the rear tire that had sunk into the mud, but the line to the rescue vehicle held it firmly. One rescuer placed wool chocks beneath the front tires. Another cleared weeds and loose metal from the work area. Rook remained just outside the safety line, lying in the rain with his amber eyes fixed on the door. "The outside handle is frozen with rust," Marissa said. "We will spread the frame at the upper corner and release the latch by hand." Travis nodded. "Slow pressure. There may be loose equipment inside." The manual spreader entered the seam near the hinge. Metal complained softly as the gap widened less than half an inch. Travis stopped the team immediately. "Ben, did anything move?" "No, sir." "Good. Stay low." The tool pressed again. A thread of cold air escaped from the ambulance, carrying the smell of damp fabric, old vinyl, and medicine. Rook lifted his head. Travis moved his flashlight toward the opening and saw the edge of a gray curtain hanging across the interior. Behind it, something shifted. "I can see your light," Ben whispered. "Keep looking at it," Travis said. "That light is not going away." The spreader opened the frame far enough for a rescuer to reach the damaged latch with a slim tool. The lock released with a dull click, but Travis kept one hand against the door to prevent it from moving suddenly. "Ben, the latch is open. We are going to pull the door toward us 1 inch at a time." "Okay." Travis and Marissa drew the door outward together. The rubber seals separated with a long, quiet sound. Cold air rolled from the dark compartment. Inside, Ben sat on the metal floor with his back against the wall. He had wrapped Lily in his own jacket, an old privacy curtain, and 2 pieces of seat padding pulled from a damaged bench. The 5-year-old girl rested against his chest, holding a small stuffed rabbit beneath her chin. Her eyes were open, but she looked too tired to speak. A red plastic whistle hung from Ben's wrist. "I kept blowing it," he said. Nobody heard. Travis looked at the insulated walls and understood. The same material that had protected them from some of the cold had swallowed nearly every sound they made. "You did exactly what you could," he said. Lily's pink sleeve was torn near the cuff, matching the fabric caught on the hinge. Travis crouched at the doorway while a medic passed him a thermal blanket. He wrapped it around Lily without separating her from Ben. "My name is Travis. We are taking both of you somewhere warm." Ben tightened his arm around his sister. "Her medicine is in my pocket." He produced a small allergy inhaler and held it out carefully. Travis handed it to the medic. "Good job keeping it dry." Outside, water moved across the clinic yard in a shallow sheet and touched the bottom of the ambulance tires. Marissa looked toward the drainage ditch. "The creek is rising faster than expected." Travis checked the anchor line, then turned back to the children. "Lily comes out first. You will see her the entire time." Ben shook his head once. "Do not leave me in here." Travis met the boy's eyes. "I will stay in this doorway until you are both out." Rook rose and stepped closer, stopping exactly where the safety line allowed. Lily saw him through the opening. Her fingers moved weakly against the blanket. "Dog," she whispered. Rook lowered his body and held her gaze. For the first time since the doors opened, Lily's face softened. Travis placed one hand beneath the thermal blanket and prepared to lift her. Behind him, rainwater reached the first wheel chock. Travis lifted Lily slowly, keeping the thermal blanket wrapped around her while the medics supported her head and shoulders from outside the ambulance. Ben held her hand until the final moment. "I am right here," he told her. His voice trembled, but his grip remained steady. Rook stood beside the safety line, body lowered and ears forward, watching every movement. When Lily emerged into the rain, the German shepherd stepped backward to give the medical team space, then followed at a careful distance as they carried her toward the heated rescue vehicle. Her stuffed rabbit remained beneath her chin. One small hand reached beyond the blanket toward Rook. The dog touched his nose lightly to her fingers before the medic closed the vehicle door. "She is inside," Travis called to Ben. "She is warm, and the medical team is with her." The boy looked through the open ambulance doors until he saw Lily beneath the interior lights. Only then did his shoulders loosen. Water had climbed above the first wheel chock and was moving quickly across the yard. The old ambulance shifted slightly as mud softened beneath the rear tire. The stabilizing strap tightened with a low metallic sound. Chief Marissa Grant checked the anchor point and spoke into her radio. "We need the second child out now. Water is approaching the rear axle." Travis entered the compartment far enough to place a soft rescue belt around Ben's waist. The boy still held the red plastic whistle. His fingers closed around it as though it were the only thing that had answered him during the long hours inside. "I thought everyone left us," Ben said. Travis secured the final buckle. Rook did not. Ben looked toward the open door where the German shepherd waited in the rain. How did he know? He kept listening. Travis tested the belt and attached it to the guideline. "You kept your sister warm. You protected her medicine. You made a signal even when no one heard it. You did not fail her." Ben lowered his eyes. "I was supposed to hold her hand at the bus." The words reached a place Travis had kept closed since childhood. He remembered floodwater, crowded steps, and his younger sister's fingers slipping from his own. For years, he had treated that moment as proof that he had not protected her. Now he looked at the boy who had turned an abandoned vehicle into shelter and refused to leave before his sister was safe. "Holding on does not always mean keeping someone beside you," Travis said. "Sometimes it means staying until help comes." Outside, Marissa called that the ambulance had moved another inch. Travis guided Ben toward the doorway. Rook stepped closer but remained clear of the rescuers. Ben placed one foot on the wet rear step, then stopped when the vehicle gave a quiet creak. Travis kept one hand on the boy's rescue belt and the other against the door frame. "Look at me," he said. "Not the water." Ben raised his eyes. One step, then another. Together they crossed the rear step and reached the ground. A rescuer wrapped Ben in a dry thermal blanket, but the boy immediately searched for Lily. Travis pointed toward the heated vehicle. Through the window, she was awake and watching for him. Ben hurried toward her with a medic beside him. Rook followed, his paws moving through the shallow water. The moment Ben entered, Lily reached from beneath the blankets and took his hand. Only then did Rook sit down beside the open door. Behind them, the abandoned ambulance settled deeper into the mud, but everyone who had been trapped inside was already standing on higher ground. Inside the heated rescue vehicle, Ben sat beside Lily with both hands wrapped around hers while the medic checked their temperature, breathing, and circulation. The 5-year-old remained bundled beneath thermal blankets, her stuffed rabbit tucked safely against her chest. Color was beginning to return to her cheeks. Rook lay on the floor near the open side door, soaked but alert, his sable coat steaming faintly in the warm air. Every time Lily moved, his amber eyes followed her. Every time Ben looked uncertain, the German shepherd lifted his head as if reminding him that the search was over. Travis stood just outside beneath the rain canopy while Chief Marissa Grant spoke with the shelter coordinator by radio. "The driver confirms the children never boarded bus 4, she said. A volunteer scanned the Carter family group before Ben and Lily returned from the trailer. The shelter roster copied the same check mark. Travis looked through the doorway at the 2 children. One mistake became 3 confirmations. Marissa nodded. and everyone stopped looking in the wrong places. Jenna Carter arrived minutes later in a county vehicle, still wearing the plastic evacuation poncho from the shelter. She crossed the wet pavement as soon as the door opened, but slowed when the medic raised one hand. "They are stable," he told her. "Cold and tired, but responsive." Jenna covered her mouth and stepped into the vehicle. Ben stood despite the blanket around his shoulders. "I am sorry," he said. "I went back for Lily's medicine." Jenna knelt in front of him and held his face between her hands. "You brought her somewhere dry. You kept her warm. You stayed with her." Ben looked toward Travis as if needing the words confirmed. Travis nodded once. That is exactly what he did. Lily reached toward her aunt, and Jenna gathered both children close without separating their hands. Rook watched the reunion, then lowered his head onto his paws. A veterinary technician entered and checked the dog's ears, paws, and breathing. "He is chilled, but healthy," she said. "He needs dry towels, water, and rest." Travis crouched beside Rook and removed the tracking line from the reinforced ring on his harness. "Good search," he said softly. Rook leaned against his knee, but kept one ear turned toward the children. Marissa joined them with the small pink thread sealed in an evidence pouch and a photograph of the shoe print. "He had more than one clue," she said. "Lily's medication scent led him from Riverside Park. The children's tracks brought him through the clinic yard. At the ambulance, he detected breath through the damaged door seal and heard movement on the metal floor." Travis looked at the clouded rear window of the old vehicle beyond the rain. He did not know the roster was wrong. "No," Marissa replied. "He only knew someone was alive where we had stopped searching." Ben heard her and reached into the pocket of his wet pants. He pulled out the red plastic whistle and stared at it. "I blew this until I could not anymore." Travis sat beside him. "The insulation kept the sound inside. That was not your fault. But Rook heard us." "He heard enough." Ben looked down at the faded evacuation band Travis had removed from his own pocket without realizing it. "Were you lost in a flood too?" Travis turned the old plastic strip between his fingers. "I was separated from my sister when I was about your age. For a long time. I thought I had failed because I could not keep hold of her hand." Ben glanced at Lily, who was now asleep against Jenna's shoulder. "Did you find her?" 2 days later. Travis closed his hand around the band. "And she reminded me that being separated was not the same as leaving." Rook rose, crossed the narrow space, and placed his head beneath Ben's hand. The boy touched the dog's wet fur. Outside, floodwater moved around the tires of the abandoned ambulance, but the rescue vehicle stood safely on higher ground. Inside, Lily breathed steadily, Ben kept hold of her fingers, and the dog who refused to walk away finally allowed his eyes to close. By morning, the rain had weakened to a steady mist, and the county shelter had opened a quiet medical room for Ben, Lily, and Jenna. The children had been cleared by the emergency physician after warming slowly, drinking water, and resting beneath clean blankets. Lily slept with her stuffed rabbit tucked beneath one arm, while Ben sat near the window holding the red whistle in his lap. Rook rested on a padded mat beside him, his sable coat dry now, the faded red collar still marked with mud along the buckle. Travis stood near the doorway with Chief Marissa Grant as volunteers updated the evacuation records by hand. Every family name was being spoken aloud. Every child was being matched to a face. No automatic check mark would close the search again. "The ambulance was supposed to be removed years ago," Marissa said. "The clinic owner left it there after the county contract ended." Travis looked through the rain-streaked glass toward the rescue vehicles outside. It kept them above the floodwater and trapped them at the same time. She handed him a maintenance report recovered from county files. The interior door handle had been removed when the medical equipment was stripped out, and no warning label had ever been placed on the rear doors. The children had found what looked like safety, then discovered they could not leave. Ben overheard them. "I should not have taken her inside." Travis crossed the room and sat beside him. "You saw rising water. You found higher ground and a covered space. That was a reasonable decision. But the door closed. You did not know the handle was missing." Ben looked toward Lily. "I told her an ambulance meant help." Travis followed his gaze. "You were right. Help was just late." Rook lifted his head at the word and placed one paw near Ben's boot. The boy rested his hand on the dog's shoulder. "Did he really smell us through the door?" Marissa stepped closer. "He followed the medication scent from the trailer. Near the ambulance, he found your footprints, Lily's fabric on the hinge, and warm air leaking through the old seal. He probably heard movement too. He did not understand we were children? Ben asked. He did not need to, Travis said. He knew someone living was inside. Jenna entered carrying 2 cups of warm apple cider and a small pink ribbon cut from Lily's damaged jacket lining. She knelt beside Rook and tied it loosely near the tag on his red collar. So he remembers who he found, she said. Rook looked at Lily, then settled again. Travis reached into his jacket and removed the faded evacuation band from his childhood. For years, he had carried it as proof of the moment he lost his sister's hand. Now it felt different, not a record of failure. A reminder that separation was not abandonment, and that being found could matter as much as never being lost. Ben noticed the band. Are you going to keep it? Travis turned it over once. Not in my pocket. Marissa pointed toward a clear memory box being prepared for the rescue station, where volunteers planned to preserve objects from the flood response. Travis placed the old band inside beside Ben's red whistle. 2 small signals from 2 different floods. One had never reached the people outside. The other had finally been heard by a dog who refused to leave. Lily stirred beneath the blankets and opened her eyes. Rook rose immediately. She reached toward the pink ribbon on his collar and smiled. Travis watched the German shepherd move closer to her bed, then looked at Ben. You held on long enough, he said. Ben took his sister's hand again. This time, there was no locked door between them and the people coming to help. 3 weeks after the flood, the abandoned ambulance stood inside the Millstone Public Works garage beneath bright work lights, stripped of rust, mud, and years of neglect. The town had voted to restore it as a mobile emergency shelter for children during storms, not because anyone wanted to preserve the vehicle that had trapped Ben and Lily, but because they wanted to change what it meant. Travis walked around the open rear doors while mechanics installed new interior handles, battery-powered lights, ventilation fans, and a low emergency bell that even a small child could reach. Fresh white paint covered the faded exterior. Shelves now held sealed water bottles, thermal blankets, first aid supplies, and simple picture cards explaining how to call for help. Rook moved beside Travis in his rescue harness, the pink ribbon still tied near the tag on his faded red collar. The German shepherd stopped at the rear step and sniffed the new rubber seal. Then he looked into the bright compartment without giving an alert. Clear, Travis said quietly. Rook climbed inside and inspected every corner, his paws moving across the new non-slip floor. Chief Marissa Grant watched from the garage entrance with a clipboard in one hand. The evacuation policy has changed, she said. No child is marked safe until a person confirms the child face-to-face. Group scans are gone. Bus drivers, shelter staff, and family coordinators all signed separately. Travis nodded. 3 people confirming the same assumption did not make it true. Now 3 people have to confirm the child. Ben and Lily arrived with Jenna a few minutes later. Ben carried the red whistle that had been removed from the station memory box for the dedication ceremony. Lily held her stuffed rabbit and wore a new pink jacket. She stopped when she saw the ambulance, her small fingers tightening around Jenna's hand. Rook stepped down from the vehicle and approached slowly. He did not pull or bark. He simply sat several feet away and waited. Lily looked at him, then released Jenna's hand. She crossed the garage floor and wrapped both arms around the dog's neck. Rook lowered his head against her shoulder. It looks different, Ben said, standing beside Travis. It is different, Travis answered. The doors opened from both sides now. Ben climbed onto the rear step and tested the new interior handle. The door moved easily. He closed it halfway, opened it again, and repeated the motion until his breathing became steady. Travis understood. Some fears could not be erased by being told they were over. They had to be answered by a door that opened every time. I still hear the rain sometimes, Ben admitted. And the whistle not working. Travis took the faded evacuation band from the clear memory box and held it beside Ben's red whistle. I remembered a bus door for almost 30 years, he said. Memories stay, but they do not always keep the same meaning. Ben looked toward Lily, who was laughing as Rook touched his nose to the stuffed rabbit. What does yours mean now? Travis placed the band back into the box. That being separated was never the same as giving up. Marissa called everyone toward the vehicle for the final safety check. Rook entered first, then turned and waited near the open rear doors. Ben offered Lily his hand. She took it. Together, they stepped into the shelter that no longer held darkness, silence, or a missing handle. Travis remained outside for one moment, watching the two children stand beneath the warm emergency lights. The old ambulance had once hidden them from every list and every search. Now it had been rebuilt to make sure no child could disappear that way again. The dedication took place that afternoon beneath a clear sky, with the restored emergency vehicle parked outside the Millstone Rescue Station, where families, volunteers, and first responders gathered in a quiet semicircle. No one called it a monument. Chief Marissa Grant introduced it as a promise. The rear doors stood open, revealing bright interior lights, low shelves of blankets and water, a child-accessible alarm, and handles that worked from both sides. Ben stood beside Lily near the ramp, his red whistle hanging from a new blue cord around his neck. Lily held her stuffed rabbit in one arm and kept the other hand resting on Rook's shoulder. The German shepherd wore his rescue harness over his sable coat, and the small pink ribbon beside his faded red collar moved gently in the breeze. Travis remained near the open doors in a clean olive field jacket, watching the crowd without stepping toward the microphone. Public praise had never felt comfortable to him. The work mattered more when no one was looking. Marissa invited Ben to test the emergency bell. The boy entered the vehicle, reached for the low red switch, and pressed it once. A clear tone sounded through the compartment and carried across the station yard. It was not loud enough to frighten Lily, but strong enough that every adult outside could hear it. Ben looked toward Travis. "That would have worked," he said. Travis nodded. "Yes, it would have." Lily climbed inside with Rook beside her. She closed one rear door halfway, then pushed the new interior handle. The door opened without resistance. She did it again, smiling when the latch released. The crowd remained quiet, understanding that the smallest movement sometimes carried the greatest meaning. Jenna stood behind the children with tears in her eyes, but her expression held no fear now. Ben offered his hand to Lily. She took it, and together they stepped down from the vehicle. Travis felt the old evacuation band in his pocket, then remembered it was no longer there. It rested inside the station memory box beside Ben's whistle, not as proof of failure, but as a record of two signals that had finally been understood. Rook moved to Travis and sat against his leg. The Marine lowered one hand between the dog's ears. "You stayed when everyone else believed the search was over," he said softly. Rook looked toward Ben and Lily. His attention had already returned to the children. Marissa approached with a small metal plaque, but instead of placing it on the outside of the vehicle, she fastened it near the interior door handle where only someone standing inside would see it. The message was simple: "You are not forgotten." Travis read the words once and looked away before emotion could reach his face completely. Ben noticed anyway. "Did you find your sister again after the flood?" he asked. "I did. Are you still scared of losing her?" Travis considered the question. "Sometimes. But fear is not the same as losing someone." Ben looked down at Lily's hand inside his own. "And letting go is not the same as leaving." Travis smiled. "Exactly." The restored vehicle was driven to its new place beside the county shelter before sunset. Ben and Lily rode in the front with Jenna, while Rook traveled beside Travis in the rescue truck behind them. When they arrived, the rear doors opened toward the shelter entrance, warm lights spilling across the pavement. Lily tied one final knot in the pink ribbon on Rook's collar, then walked through the open doorway with Ben. Travis stood beside the German shepherd and watched them go. Once, an abandoned ambulance had hidden two children from every system meant to protect them. Now the same doors opened both ways, and no one had to ask whether someone was still inside.